Hello there. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to ask a short favor. If you're interested in either of the two books that I have written and am about to release, head on over to my website at theanxioustruth.com/books. There you can learn about both books, one of which is free, and you can get on my mailing list to be notified when each book is released and how you can get it. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's get rolling. Hey, what's up, dudes and dudettes? Drew here at thatanxietyguy.com. Check out the flowers behind me. I'm all about the cinematography today. And a fly just landed right on my microphone. That's funny. This is the second take. I recorded this video and I forgot to turn on the microphone. So now I have to do it again. All right. So it is July 5th, 2019. And today we are going to talk for a little while about anticipatory anxiety. This is a video that I have been asked to make for a while. And recently it's come up again. And I'm starting to understand what a big topic and how important it is to a lot of people. The sun is baking me. I may sweat a little bit, but that's fine. So let's talk about anticipatory anxiety. The first thing I want to do is sort of give the overview of what it's all about. You know what it is if you're asking about it. When you have something coming up, you're going to do an exposure, you have an event to go to, whatever it is that's coming up, whether it's in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, or 5 months. When you think about it and you know that you have to do it and you feel like you can't get out of it, your anxiety goes through the roof. You may even have panic attacks about it. That's anticipatory anxiety. You are anticipating an event. So there's no mystery there. But let's really break it down. And there's 2 points I want to make. First, let's break down what it is. So when you have a panic attack, you are afraid. When you develop panic disorder and agoraphobia and things like that, you become afraid of being afraid. That's what the disorder is. So in this context, anticipatory anxiety is not a mystery. It is merely being afraid of being afraid of being afraid. So in a panic attack, you're afraid. In panic disorder and agoraphobia, you're afraid of being afraid. And when you develop anticipatory anxiety around these subjects, you are afraid of being afraid of being afraid. So it's not a mystery, right? So when you think about it that way, there's a chain. You're just adding layer upon layer of fear. That's all that is. It is not mysterious. It's not a black box. And what I really want to say here, it's super important, is that it's not some sort of special kind of anxiety that we treat differently. There's 2 main things you have to, 3 that I'm going to give you here. Number 1, it's not some sort of special different kind of anxiety that you treat differently than any other. It's not. Number 2, it is not an external force that is beyond your control. So anticipatory anxiety, just like any other part of this thing that we talk about, is not outside you. It's not some force that is pressing upon you that you didn't ask for and can't control. That's not true. You are generating it yourself. And number 3, you can't be looking for a way to make it go away. So like all the other anxiety we talk about, you and I, this is not a thing where it's like, well, I'm going to tell you how to make it go away. You're not trying to make it go away. You can't make it go away. Because the only way to make it go away, because it's based on a fear of going into the situations that you are afraid of. You're afraid to be in the car or home alone or driving or walking or wherever. You're afraid of those things because you're afraid of how you're going to feel when you do those things or when you go to those places or go into those situations. And anticipatory anxiety is just you are anticipating being afraid of how you're going to feel in those situations. So the only way for anticipatory anxiety to stop being a thing on the long run in your life and to become less of a thing in your life is you have to get over the fear of your anxiety. So that's just the way it is. So you have to move through the anticipatory anxiety to get out the door and go to these things, to face the fear and do your exposures and do it constructively and learn not to be afraid of possibly having a panic attack or something like that. So when you are no longer afraid of how you will feel when you get in the car and drive on the highway, then you will anticipate it less. I'm not saying it will completely go away, but many of you in the past few days talking about this have been talking about how anticipatory anxiety is what's keeping you stuck or it's crippling, and I've heard it called automatic. It's not automatic. You're doing it. It doesn't happen automatically. This is something that comes from inside you. And I've heard a few people say like, well, this is what has me stuck. This is why I'm not moving forward, because it's the anticipatory anxiety. Well, unfortunately, you can't be looking for a way to fix that so that you can get in the game. You have to get in the game, and then it will fix the anticipatory anxiety. So I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but if you've been thinking about that as if I could just find a way to deal with the anticipatory anxiety, then I'll be able to go out and do my exposures and start to do the work. that's not the way it works. You have to get out the door or whatever it is, and you have to engage with the things that you don't want to engage in. So that's just the way it goes. But so that being the case, now we know what it is. We know it's not magic. We know it's not special. We know it's not a different kind of anxiety. We know that we aren't going to make it go away, and that you don't try and treat it first before you do your exposures. That's not how any of that works. So that being said, we can talk about some strategies that will help you move through the anticipatory anxiety so that you can get out the door, whatever it is you have to do to go to your events and face your fears and start to unravel this crazy nest that has been built. All right. So there's a couple of concepts here. Number one is, and they're all kind of related. Number one, I would say, is making a plan is super important. So let me use myself as an example. So if the problem for you is that you want to get out and start doing your exposures and systematically going toward the fear and incrementally adding to your comfort zone and that sort of stuff, and I got a phone call, so I have to cut this together. Now I'm going to edit. Okay, so if your problem is you want to get out and do your exposures and do those sort of things, but you feel like the anticipatory anxiety has you stuck, then what you need to do is you have to start really making a plan, sort of a concrete plan, for doing your exposures and execute that plan to get yourself out the door. So if your plan is, I need to start driving on the highway more, that's great. You need to have a plan before you get in the car. So your plan is, I'm going to start driving on the highway, I'm going to do 1 exit, then 2 exits, and 3 exits. That's great. I'm with you on that. That's what you got to do. But before you can even get in the car to drive on the highway, you need to have a plan for getting yourself in the car too. So what I would say is, I will give you the example of what I used to do. So when I was in a situation where I had to get up every morning and practice my driving, it was in the dead of winter, so there was a bunch of things I had to do before I get out the door just to keep from freezing to death. And I would get up, I would get dressed, I would go wash my face and brush my teeth and brush my hair and put on a jacket or whatever the hell it was, put on my shoes, drink some water, get out the door. I literally made myself a plan, a routine, like an exposure plan. So I knew the exposures that I had to do, but I also had to make a plan that was like the pregame for the exposures. And the plan was decide what I'm doing and then break the pregame, the leading up to the exposure, into the tiniest little steps that I could possibly imagine, and then execute each one after the other, without thinking ahead, with living each one as I did it, and having made the commitment that I was just going to go through the plan until I was out and in the car. So let me explain that in a little bit more detail. I would literally do things like, all I have to do is sit up, and I would sit up. All I have to do now is stand up, and I would stand up. All I have to do now is put one foot in front of the other and walk into the bathroom, and I would do that. All I have to do right now is turn on this light, and I would turn on the light switch. All I have to do now is pick up my toothbrush, and I would do that. All I have to do now is unscrew the cap from the toothpaste, and I would do that. Do you see where I'm headed here? All I have to do now is put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, then I would do that. And I would do them slowly and deliberately and focused only on that task. Not the task after it, not what I did before it, not what was coming 10 minutes or an hour down the road, not putting myself in the seat of the car already like wondering what that was going to be, just unscrewing the cap from the toothpaste. That's all I cared about in the whole world for that 1 second that it takes to do that. Then I would just go through it bit by bit, brush my teeth, put the toothbrush down, wash my face, turn on the water, get the soap, rinse my face, pick up the brush, run it through my hair, close the light, one foot in front of the other, walk into the kitchen, get some water, sit down, have a sip, have another sip. I literally broke it down into the tiniest little tasks that I could imagine, and that was my plan. So my plan for driving exposure was to go out in the car every morning and drive more and more and more. But my plan to get me to that, the pregame for that, was literally broken down into the tiniest little steps that I could. I had already decided the night before, this is what I'm going to do when I open my eyes in the morning, and then I did it. I just made a plan and then executed it step by step by step by step by step, being mindful of every single step and not allowing, right, my thoughts to go ahead a step, 2 steps, 10 steps. When I got out of bed, I didn't have to live being in the car yet because I wasn't in the car. So when you get in a situation where, well, I know I have to do my exposures, and the first thing you do is immediately put yourself mentally in the exposure and in panic mode, and oh my God, I'm going to feel terrible, and what if I panic, and what if I have to pull over, and what if I pass out? Like, that's that thing where it's coming from inside you and you can control that. So instead of doing that, say, okay, what do I have to do to get in the car? And then break that down and execute that plan slowly, deliberately, mindfully. Know what you're going to do before you do it so you don't have to think about it while you're doing it. And just keep bringing your focus right back to the, I talk all the time about bringing your focus back here, putting it where you want it. Well, the good news is when you're executing your pre-game exposure plan, you don't even have to find a place to put it. You don't even have to use your nose. Put your focus on the task you're doing at that moment. Literally, picking up your right shoe is the only task that you care about for a second or half a second, whatever it is. Putting it on your foot is all you care about. Tying it is all you care about. You don't care about what came before it or after it. So you have to get into that mindset. And the bigger mindset that goes along with that is that you do not have to live an event before it happens. You just don't. Like, that's part of what fuels this. So if in fact you're dealing with anticipatory anxiety, not so much over planned exposures, but over other things that you might have coming up, family events, whatever the heck it is coming down the road, maybe it's next week or a month from now or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You can sit down and make a plan for those things too. And part of that plan is, all right, let's see, on August 15th, I have to go to my cousin's wedding, which is 3 hours away, but I haven't been more than a half hour away from the house in a year. Okay, so your plan is, I have to start doing some exposures before that to increase my radius. But as far as the wedding goes, my cousin's wedding out of town, whatever your event is, part of your plan for that should be, and then I won't really think about the wedding until the day of the wedding. And here's what I will do that day. I will get up, I will take a shower, I will eat breakfast, I will get my clothes out of the closet, I will get dressed, I will call my cousin to see how she's doing, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But part of the plan for that upcoming event, regardless of how far it is down the road, is to say as part of the plan, okay, there are things I could do to prepare for it. Maybe some additional exposures and work I could do before it happens, but I don't have to live that day until that day. So part of your plan for that is to not live the day until you have to live the day, and then think about how you're going to live that day, and get yourself a plan for getting ready to get out the door and get to this event where you have tasks to focus on and you could be slow and deliberate and mindful about it. And you don't have to worry about how you're going to feel at that wedding until you get to the wedding. That's reality. So you have to stop thinking about it as some sort of process that you can't control, that's happening to you. I hate it. It's got me stuck. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have you stuck. I hate to say this, and I say this often, and I know that, maybe I'm a broken record with this sort of stuff, and it's a little bit harsh, but too bad. Like, you have you stuck. It doesn't have you stuck. So you can find ways to unstick, right? And that's part of how you're going to do that. So we've talked about what anticipatory anxiety is. We've broken it down so that it's not a mystery. It's just being afraid of being afraid of being afraid. It's not a mystery. The only way to truly get rid of it in your life is to stop being afraid of your anxiety and panic. It's not a different kind of anxiety. You treat it exactly the same way. And there are a couple of techniques, especially mindfulness, living in the moment, slowing things down, being deliberate, and learning to focus your mind and your thoughts that can help you, if you will, move through the anticipatory anxiety or float through it. You want to talk about floating and acceptance, that's fine, whatever term you want to use. But you can use some techniques that will help you move through that anticipatory anxiety and actually get to the event that you need to get to, be an exposure or something else, whatever it happens, just some life event that you have to do. All right. So, okay, I will have to do some editing since I got a phone call in the middle of this, which I normally don't have to do. So I have to get to that. And of course, if there's questions or comments, I'll do more on this if we need to. We could probably do a whole series of 3, 4, 5 videos just on anticipatory anxiety and what it means and how to deal with it. So what I would suggest you do is the first place to start is always at my website, thatanxietyguy.com. Every episode is there. You can go to the audio and the podcast. You can go to the videos on YouTube. You can find places to comment, the Facebook group, follow me on social. I would suggest when you're there, maybe subscribe to my mailing list. It's super low volume, but as the audience grows, it's getting harder to communicate with everybody effectively, and I might start using that. So anyway, start there, and if you have comments or questions or whatever, so I don't care if you're commenting on YouTube or on Facebook, whatever, but if you're not sure where to start, at least go there and you'll find all the places you can go to join the discussion. So hopefully it's been helpful, and yeah, I hope you guys dig the flowers, like me and my new cinematography skills. And I'm happy that I turned the microphone on this time, so that worked out well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey, what's up guys? Drew here. In the 5 years that I've done the podcast, I've never had a sponsor. But now it's time for me to put in a little plug for the day job, the business that I own. And that business is managed WordPress hosting. So if you have a website and it runs WordPress, and you'd like WordPress hosting that makes WordPress faster, more secure, and way easier than you ever imagined it would be, then check out Helix. You can find us online at imhelix.com. That's IAMHELIX.com. We took a long time to build Helix. I'm super proud of it. It works spectacularly. We take really good care of our customers, and I promise we would take really good care of you too. So if you're in the market for WordPress hosting that will blow your mind, check out Helix. I would appreciate the consideration. I thank you for coming by and listening, and I'll see you the next time.